Namaste, good evening, and welcome back to the Dharwad.
Rohit, your speaker is mute. Kindly unmute it.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Namaste, good evening, and welcome back to the Dharwad Katte episode today. I welcome President of Dharwad Katte, Professor Basavaraj P. Donur, Registrar Central University of Karnataka, and Dean, School of Humanities and Languages in the Central University of Karnataka. I welcome today's speaker, Dr. S. B. Biradar, Associate Professor of English Vijay at Shri Vijay Mahantesh College, Ilkal, and all the Dharwad Katte members. I also welcome all the teachers of languages, different kinds of literatures, and performance studies, practitioners and researchers who have invested their entire lives in the field of drama and theatre studies. I also welcome the press members, research scholars, students, and all the Dharwad Katte well wishers to this today's occasion. Dharwad Katte, as you all know, is an online platform dedicated to lectures and critical discussions in the field of literary and cultural studies. It contains lectures in Kannada and English. Its initiatives, Makers of World Theatre and Revisiting Shakespeare's Theatre, is an extensive effort to bring dramatists, theatre activists, drama practitioners, researchers, and academia on the same platform. Today, we have gathered here on this and online platform to discuss one of the Shakespeare's interesting plays. In the last week, we were fortunate to listen to Professor Jibu Matthew George, who spoke on Shakespeare and Joyce, a curious case of modernist intertextuality. Today, we have with us another equally interesting speaker, Dr. S. B. Biradar, Associate Professor of English, Sri Vijay Mahantesh College, Ilkal. Before we begin with the talk, let me take a minute to introduce our today's speaker. Dr. S. B. Biradar is an Associate Professor of English and Director of IQAC at Sri Vijay Mahantesh College, Ilkal, affiliated to Rani Channamma University, Belagavi. He completed his BA with first class from Karnataka University, Dharwad. He studied his MA in English Literature at Kovempu University, Shimoga. He has MPhil and PhD on Indian English Literature to his credit. He strongly believes in continuous professional development, which reflects in his academic career. He also studied diploma in journalism and passed his degree with fourth rank in the entire state. Dr. Biradar contributed 30 research papers to peer-reviewed journals like The Quest and New Literary Horizons. He has presented more than 50 research papers in many national and international seminars and conferences all over the country. He has authored 16 books, and Dr. Biradar specializes in translation studies and translated all the vachanas of Dasi Maya, a renowned and distinguished medieval Kannada vachana writer. Apart from this, he has authored many books, to name a few: Introduction to Literary Criticism and Theory, English Language and Phonetics, Literary Criticism and Practice, Literary Exploration under CBCS. As of now, he has trained more than 15,000 students on communication skills. As an organizing secretary, Dr. Biradar is on the board of studies at Rani Channamma University, Belagavi, and has a teaching experience of over 22 years. He has inspired thousands of students through his innovative teaching. I welcome you to the Dharwad Katte episode today, sir. And today,
Thank you.
Dr. S.B. Biradar is going to speak on behavior from intergroup affect and stereotype in Shakespeare's The Merchant of Venice. And without delaying the introduction and without making you wait for the exciting talk today, I request Dr. S.B. Biradar to deliver his talk. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Rohit sir. Honorable President of Dharwad Khatte, Dr. Basavaraj Donur sir, Registrar, Central University of Karnataka, Gulbarga, General Secretary Dr. Vijayalakshmi Dhan Reddy Madam, Secretary and Treasurer Dr. Prakash Bedikai, and all the members of Dharwad Khatte. At the outset, I thank Dr. Donur sir for his passionate and unending feel of making literature discussed and much debated on various interesting topics. And his specialization is theater, as we know that. And this is a new venture, revisiting Shakespeare in the 21st century. So thank you, sir. Thank you for this opportunity. My topic of presentation is behavior of intergroup affect and stereotypes in Shakespeare's The Merchant of Venice. As it has been rightly said that The Merchant of Venice is one of the amazing creations of William Shakespeare. It is a very significant play because it raises complex issues of justice, mercy, religion, and bonds, etc. It is one of the much discussed and debated plays on anti-Semitism. In this context, I would like to tell you regarding a recent staging of the Merchant of Venice about 3-4 years ago in US. Uh, the play is presented with a different name called District Merchants, and it sets a post Civil War Washington D.C. Because of after watching this play, they find African American conflicts and Jewish merchant conflicts, and the community engagement initiative supported by the National Endowment for the Humanities has also seen this entire episode, and this was staged by Michele Oshro. She writes that the Merchant of Venice, it is a comedy, but it is creating uncomfortable, and it's poking fun at stereotypes not only of Jews but also blacks, foreigners, poorer folks, etc. Well, she says that I am disappointed when audiences, uh, any audiences, but particularly Jews, attack the play, claiming it perpetuates stereotypes and should not be read or staged. But I think a play that exposes the hypocrisy of a world obsessed with cash and credit, that links love to merchandise, that confuses virtuous talks and virtuous action is a play that deserves some attention. It reveals how misguided are our own priorities and signals the danger of intolerance. So look at this. The entire revisiting of Shakespeare play or restaging of Shakespeare play created a crisis, a huge crisis in US, a racial crisis in US. Well, let's take up the play in the light of these developments in the 21st century. You know that the Merchant of Venice explores the behavior of two communities and the stereotypes present in both the groups. It also explicates how one community tries to improve the other through these stereotypes, namely the Jew stereotype Shylock and the Christian stereotype like Portia, Portia in disguise, Antonio, and the entire Venetian court and others. So the two groups setting their stereotypes, imposing one on the other. Well, when we look at stereotype ontology, it is a collective cognitive entity and influential players here. Stereotypes of Jews are generalized representation of Jews, often caricatured and of a prejudiced and anti-Semitic nature. This is quite clear with respect to the Jew stereotype and to Shylock as an epitome of it. Similarly, Antonio and Christian friends resemble Christian stereotypes. Well, when we talk of this stereotype on the Jew here, let's take up the status of Jews during Middle Ages. You know that a few people in Middle Ages were practicing Jew. The kingdom's Jewish population had been expelled in 1290. The entire England evacuated the Jews in the year 1290, about more than 200 years before Shakespeare was born. And similarly, they were permitted after 1660, almost after the death of William Shakespeare. This is a crucial factor to talk about Jewish community in England during Shakespeare's times. Despite the expulsion of the Jews in the Middle Ages, a small group of Portuguese Jews comprised of just under 100 people survived in London by living quiet lives and mostly avoided trouble with authorities. Look at the Elizabethan London. It also is a home to a small number of Jewish converts to Christianity. So conversion is one of the interesting part of this play. In spite of their conversion, the Jewish people remained subject to anti-Semitic prejudice. In 1594, the royal physician Rodrigo Lopez, he is a Spanish Christian of Jewish ancestry, was found guilty of plotting to poison Queen Elizabeth. When he spoke to the crowd who had gathered to watch his execution, Lopez insisted that he loved the Queen as well as he loved Jesus Christ. Look at the sarcasm in his words. The crowd laughed at him. They believed that he hated the Queen. So his choice of words only confirmed that he hated Jesus Christ as well. So there were very few practicing Jews during this period of time. And now look at the anti-Semitic prejudice ran deep in England, though the very few number, but this was very innate in the civilians of England. So conventional wisdom held that Jews who refused to convert to Christianity were delaying the salvation of mankind. These were the notion spread in England. In the medieval period, many Christians also believed that Jews killed Christian children as part of their religious practice. And this rumor persisted during Shakespeare's lifetime. So all these negatives towards Jews were quite common in Elizabethan period. Perhaps the most widespread stereotype of Jews that survived in Shakespeare's time related to usury, that is lending money with a high rate of interest. In many parts of Europe, Christians were legally forbidden from collecting interest. Uh, this is a crucial point in the play because Shylock is being a Jew lending money. In many parts of Europe, this even Christians were legally forbidden, though not legally barred from the practice. Jews who did charge interest on loans came to be seen as greedy and devious. Shakespeare addressed this stereotype in The Merchant of Venice, uh, proven ambivalent for many audiences through the centuries. Shakespeare's depiction of the Jewish moneylender Shylock has struck many as anti-semiotic, and the play is also at pains to show that cruelty and greed, as well as pain and suffering, are traits that can be found in Jews and Christians alike. Shakespeare clearly indicates that Shylock's cruelty partly arises in response to his experience of discrimination and abuse. Yet within the play itself, there is no empathy for vilified man who disappears in disgrace at the end of the fourth act. So there were many plays coming up during Shakespeare's time. One of them was quite popular, was Christopher Marlowe's The Jew of Malta. It was published around 1589. This play tells the story of Barabbas, a wealthy and villainous Jewish merchant who falsely converts to Christianity to further his devious plans. Eventually, uh, Barabbas is tricked into falling into his own trap, which results in his being burned alive. Like Shakespeare's The Merchant of Venice, it remains unclear for many modern readers whether the Jew of Malta condemns anti-Jewish fantasies or if the play works to critique those fantasies. Well, apart from this, we have during 1580s and 90s, Robert Wilson came out with one comedy, Three Ladies of London. So in all such plays, we notice that Jews were targeted, Jews were humiliated, and how Shakespeare looks at this issue can be seen in The Merchant of Venice. Well, Venetian moneylender Shylock, one of Shakespeare's most incomparable characters, and one who has often stolen the entire show of Merchant of Venice. It is a tendency to see Shylock as the center of the play as opposed to Antonio. Almost every critic of The Merchant of Venice acknowledges Shylock as its most compelling figure, present in only 5 scenes and entirely absent from its final act. However, this very limited scope in the play, he overcomes all the characters and he tries to affirm his identity and assert his identity efficiently. Shylock's accurate insights into his own condition, his grief, his anger, and pursuit of revenge give him the complexity of a tragic hero such as Macbeth, Hamlet, etc. Yet he is a Jew stereotype, and Shakespeare's grand equivocal comedy. Uh, so Harold Bloom rightly says that it is a profoundly anti-Semitic work in the year 1998. Well, let's look at the play, from the perspective of these two groups and how they initiate revenge on one another. Well, to put it in simple terms, the play is a story of Shylock. He is a Jew and he lends money to Antonio on the condition that he gets to cut off a pound of Antonio's flesh if he defaults on the loan. Well, Antonio borrows the money in spite of the awareness of the cruelty of Shylock. The money for his friend Bassanio, who needs it to court the wealthy Portia. Well, when Antonio defaults it, Portia, disguised as a man, defends him in court and ultimately uh, bests Shylock with hair splitting logic. His oath entitles him to a pound of the Antonio's flesh, she notes, but not his blood, making any attempt at collecting the fee without killing Antonio, a Christian, impossible. When Shylock realizes it's too late. He is changed with conspiring against a Venetian citizen, and therefore his fortune has to be seized. The only way he can keep half his estate is by converting to Christianity. So, Shylock plays the stereotypical greedy Jew who is spat upon by his Christian enemies and constantly insulted by them. His daughter runs away with a Christian and abandons her Jewish heritage. Apart being outsmarted by the Christians, Shylock is forced to convert to Christianity, at which point he simply disappears from play and he is never heard again. Well, Shylock hasn't always been played like a monster in the entire play. There is little argument that he was initially written as a comic figure, with Shakespeare's original title being The Comical History of the Merchant of Venice. But interpretations began to shift in the 18th century. Nicholas Rao, one of the first Shakespearean editors, wrote in 1709 that even though the play had up until that point been acted and received comically, he was convinced it was designed tragically by the author. By the middle of that century, Shylock was being portrayed sympathetically, most notably by English stage actor Edmund Kean, who says was willing to see in Shylock what no one but Shakespeare had seen, the tragedy of a man. So, when you see Shylock as a character depicted by William Shakespeare, the various perspectives emerge out of the reading of Merchant of Venice and the speeches made by Shylock. Shakespeare see, what exactly, as an author, Shakespeare see in his character. If we ask these questions, was Shakespeare being anti-Semitic or was he merely exploring anti-Semitism? When we look at these questions, it is better to go through the text instead of, going deep into the minds of Shakespeare. It is better what the play tells us. As various theories came out, the text, the reading of the text, close reading of the text reveals many meanings. When we come across the observations by various critics, particularly the critics who have long debated what motivated Shakespeare to write this play. Perhaps Shakespeare has in his mind Jew of Malta, wherein a Jew seeking revenge against a Christian had something to do with it. Well, Shakespeare was inspired by another thing, that Lopez affair, which took place in 1594, in which that Queen's physician who was of Jewish descent, uh, who was hanged for alleged treason. Well, in the beginning of the play, I told about this incident, in the beginning of my presentation. One has to bear in mind that the Jews' expulsion from England in 1290, most of what Shakespeare knew about them was either heresy or legend. Okay. So there were preoccupied notions about Jews in the minds of Elizabethan audience. So Shakespeare's sympathetic treatment of Shylock and his mockery of the Christian characters is visible in the play. When Shylock asks, look at, I quote some of the lines from the play. He has disgraced me and hindered me. 500,000 laughed at my losses, mocked at my gains, scorned my nation, flattered my bargains, cooled my friends, hated my enemies, and what's his reason? So, this rivalry, this revenge, the hatred taking place between the two races during Elizabethan England. Shylock has given the most humanizing and befitting speech in another instance of the play, where he says, "Has not a Jew eyes?" He asks, these questions about his, Christians questioning his bloodlust for, money and, showing inhuman qualities in Shylock. Well, I quote some of the lines from the play. Has not a Jew hands, organs, dimensions, senses, affections, passions, fed with the same food, hurt with the same weapons, subject to the same diseases, healed by the same means, warmed and cooled by the same winter and summer as a Christian is? If you prick us, do we not bleed? If you tickle us, do we not laugh? If you poison us, do we not die? And if you wrong us, shall we not revenge? If we are like you in the rest, we will resemble you in that. Well, when you go through such remarks made by Shylock, typical stereotype Jewish representation in Jew of Malta by Marlowe and Shakespeare, we notice similar tendencies in the representation of Jews as anti-Semitic. Even if you hate Shylock while reading, the play, when we go through these questions, there is a shift in our attitude that you have an alliance with him, definitely. And I don't think you ever really recover from it. It is because of the nature, the thoughts, the ideas he put across before the audience, and that the same very strong hatred by Christians towards Jews is seen here. Well, in such humanizing lines, the character of Shylock is represented. He acts like a villain, but the question remains whether he has to be blamed or Shylock is right in his stereotypical views towards Christians. Well, the villainy in one of the instances, he says, the villainy you teach me, I will execute. Well, in other words, he is telling his Christian enemies, I am going to mirror back to you what you really look like. So, Shylock, being a very typical Jew who undergoes the humiliation of Christians during Elizabethan times, wants to retaliate these people. This is a kind of, a revenge. What we notice in various other situations, maybe in Hamlet's, where he wanted to take revenge against his father's killers. Though the situation is different in Hamlet, we notice a very crucial, complex crisis of racial discrimination in this play. And I don't think that Shakespeare is, I don't think that Shakespeare is humiliating Jews by saying that Jews are of having these kind of stereotypical characters. Definitely, Shakespeare tries to give a more sympathetic image of Shylock being a Jew who was suffered under the majority community of Christians in England. Well, look at the Christian virtues. One part of the play is that Shylock is a very villainous character, and on the other hand, the counterpart of this group. Okay, so this group, Christian group, how they, what exactly you get the image of Christians in their behavior, in their approach towards the human beings living during that period of time. So look at the Christian virtues, particularly maybe Portia. Portia is highlighted as a Christian virtuous character who has all good in her, and she tries to rescue a Christian fellow from the clutches of a Jew. Well, I will, when you make a close reading of the play, you come to know that even Portia is also having hatred towards Jews. Let us take up that. See, the question of showing mercy or being generous or loving one's own enemies, when she makes this in her in her trial scene, when she visits the court in disguise as a lawyer. So the Christian characters do and do not uphold these principles in various degrees. When she says that she has, when she demands for mercy for Antonio from Shylock, she should have shown it at the end of the play when Shylock was punished. The question of conversion from Jew to Christianity on the one hand, and on the other hand, confiscating of property of Shylock. And one more thing is that even the Jessica, the daughter of Shylock, she was also converted, and she got married to Gratiano, who is a friend of Bassanio. So here lies the complexity of the entire play, and the Christian hypocrisy is also exposed in these instances when you read the play closely. Particularly, keeping Portia and Antonio as the center characters, and their behavior, their psychological, attacking on Shylock, and in the trial scene, we come to know that the hypocrisy is exposed by Shakespeare as a writer. Well, the Christian characters, the characters do and do not uphold these principles. Antonio spits on Shylock, calls him a dog, and says again, if given a chance to, attack him, they will never leave him. Okay, these kind of instances are very much seen with all Christian counterparts to Shylock. Well, even Gratiano, look at the characters of Gratiano, who gets the wealth of Shylock as he is going to marry his daughter, wants him hanged in the end of the courtroom scene. Look at this. Portia cannot tolerate the thought of marrying someone with a dark complexion. So all these issues, when we read the play, we'll be able to focus on these issues more clearly. Well, when she says loving one's enemies, okay, not so much, in that mercy speech she made, mercy should be spontaneous, giveth, taketh, all these things, uh, and these all subtleties were presented by William Shakespeare in the play. Well, one more clearest example of unchristian behavior of the play is that, Christians, in that instance I quoted just now, the quality of mercy speech, she she eloquently talks about grace, and she says that the way she deceives Shylock is through revenge and hair splitting legalism, and all these things. She betrays her entire oration about showing people mercy when she fails to show Shylock mercy. In fact, when Shylock at the end of that trial scene, he was quite happy to take ducats back on the one hand. On the other hand, he requests the court to leave him. He don't want any interest either, or any revenge he wanted to take. It is in a way Shylock, requesting for mercy. And in this situation, the hypocrisy of Portia comes out not in a surprise. So, I can easier teach 20 what were good to be. It is one more, in one of the conversations with Nerissa, she says that, I quote, I can easier teach 20 what were good to be do than to be one of the 20 to follow mine own teaching. So, look at that, what I should say, the fire of teaching someone whom she wanted to teach a lesson. So, in fact, she shows that attitude in the trial scene towards Shylock the Jew. So, as a result of Portia's sermonizing about how grace resists compulsion, Shylock is forced to convert clearly the play's most problematic event. Look at this. The conversion is another issue which has been discussed in the play. So, the entire play, which talks about Shakespeare's, Shakespeare's view on anti-Semitic issues taking place in the play, has been addressed effectively. Well, recently in one of the instances, there is Charles Morowitz, who wrote Recycling Shakespeare. He comments rightly, there is almost as much evil in the defending Christians as there is in the prosecuting Jew, and a verdict that relieves a moneylender of half his wealth and then forces him to convert to save his skin is not really a sterling example of Christian justice. So these issues, what my point is in the entire my proposition is that the behavior of these intergroup, which affects the entire harmony of the Venice state or the society or the community, is visible in the play. Okay. Well, as a stereotype ontology, I have taken up Shylock as a stereotype Jew, and similarly, we notice stereotypes in Christian community as well. They are Antonio, particularly Portia, and then the Venetian court. All these entire team of Christian community or Christian characters, they definitely play their game plan, what they have intended in their mind to teach a lesson to Jew who was though a minority community, and the notions prevalent before 1290 regarding these Jews has been reflected very well in the play. Well, when we consider the play as a whole, we come to notice that there were many arguments so far on Shakespeare that Shakespeare wanted to expose anti-Semitic views of Jews, which creates hatred among Christians. But where the subtle reading between the lines clearly tells us that the hypocrisy of Christianity is also exposed by Shakespeare, and the entire play, the entire play reflects all these issues very clearly at the end of the play. Okay, so this is all about my presentation. Let us take up any questions from the audience, uh, and then I'll give a few more comments on the play.
Thank you so much, sir, for this wonderful presentation. Uh, thank you once again. Now I request our Dharwad Katte President, Professor Basavraj P. Dodo, to share a few of his views on the today's topic. Over to you, sir. Dono, sir, am I audible?
Yeah. Just a minute.
Yes, yes.
Good evening. Am I audible, Rohit?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're audible, sir.
Okay. Uh, First of all, I must thank my friend Dr. S.P. Biradar. Um, any problem, Rohit?
No, sir. No, sir. You're audible. Please continue.
Just a minute. For giving, there is problem with me. I will rejoin. 1 minute.
No, no, sir. You're clearly audible. You please continue.
But I have problem. You
Okay,
don't have
okay.
problem, but I have problem. Give me a minute.
Okay, okay, sir.
Yes. Rohit, fine? This is fine?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir,
sir.
you are audible. Okay, thank you. Uh, I heard Dr. B.S. Biradar today. He is one of my very good friends. Dr. S.P. Biradar is working as an associate professor of English in Sri Vijaya Mahantesh College, Ilkal. I have known him for the last 2.5 decades. And he is a good academic. And he has he has many publications to his credit. And today he delivered a very good talk, a very well structured talk on behavior from intergroup effect and stereotypes in Shakespeare's The Merchant of Venice. And we all have heard him. It's a good speech, it's a good talk. And he drew our attention to certain nuances of this play, The Merchant of Venice. You can call it a tragedy or tragi-comedy. It is one of very popular plays by William Shakespeare. I'm very happy that Dr. Biradar could participate in this lecture series on Shakespeare and present his views and share his experiences, his thoughts, and his understanding of British literature, more especially Shakespeare and Shakespeare's plays with us for almost 40-45 minutes. And it has been a wonderful experience for me. I'm sure all the viewers of the Dharwad Katte must also have felt the same. And Shakespeare is one writer in whom people never lose interest. He has been appealing to the for over 4 decades. So Shakespeare has never lost his popularity, and the writers across the globe have shown a lot of interest in him. You may have issues with Shakespeare. That's not very important. You may not like certain characters. You may not like a certain ideology that he discusses in his plays. That's not very important. But you can't help admiring Shakespeare. You can't help loving Shakespeare. You can't help appreciating Shakespeare. And you can't help praising Shakespeare's very profound and very comprehensive genius. Very talented writer. In fact, this is the first play that I have read. I have read in my life. The Merchant of Venice is the first play that I have read in my life. We had it as a text at our at BA Major English. I'm sure Dr. Biradar also read it when he was a student. I was 1 year senior to him. We studied in Bijapur, which is called Vijaypur now. So, as I said, The Merchant of Venice is one of very popular plays by William Shakespeare, and people have not lost interest in this play. And it is as popular as his tragedies or his other important comedies like Twelfth Night and his Roman histories like Julius Caesar. Very popular play. And Dr. Biradar is right when he said that Shakespeare seems to be prejudiced when he in his approach to the Jews and so on. My teacher, Professor Kirtinath Kurtkoti, used to say one thing to me. He used to say Shakespeare is like all of his characters, and Shakespeare is like none of his characters. I want the viewers and the students of the literature to take it very seriously. So, if there is any problem in my play, in my drama, in my story, it can't be entirely attributed to me. So also, if there is racism, yes, there is a racism. There is discrimination. There is racism. There is discrimination. There are several issues which you may not like. And at some point, Portia appears to be very gentle when she talks about the quality of mercy. The quality of mercy is never strained. It blesseth him who takes, and it blesseth him that gives. So she gives a profound lecture, a wonderful lecture on the quality of mercy. And this very important speech in the play can also be looked at with suspicion. There is a possibility. But so this cannot be entirely attributed to Shakespeare. Shakespeare is very profound, very prolific writer, very talented writer, and a very great genius. Okay, but in his place, you find some problems. I don't deny. And if you want to become a good merchant, you must read this play. I don't tell you the story of this play because everybody has read it. I'm sure that everybody must have read this play several times. I like the character of Portia, and more than the character of Portia, I like Sherlock. Anybody who reads The Merchant of Venice will fall in love with Sherlock than any other characters. When you read the Mahabharata, sometimes you fall in love with Duryodhana more than with others. At the end of the day, you can't help appreciating the Pandavas, not the Kauravas. Okay, but there is something in Duryodhana which attracts you. There is something in Sherlock which attracts you. Okay, and his enmity also. He's very clear in his attitude and approach. I don't like Christians. And there are many reasons why he doesn't like Christians, because he has been very badly ill-treated. He has been humiliated, and he has 100 reasons to hate Christians. Okay, but ethics say that even if you have reasons to hate somebody, you should not be hating. You should not hate anybody, right? So he was waiting for an opportunity to take revenge to take revenge upon Christians. And when Bassanio went to him and asking for loan 3,000 ducats, and this play has been translated into Kannada several times. ಮೂವತ್ತು ಸಾವಿರ ಹೊನ್ನಗಳು. That's how the play begins in Kannada. 3,000, 3,000 ಹೊನ್ನಗಳು, 3,000 ducats. It is one of the very popular speeches that Shylock delivers in the play. Okay, if you want money, I will give you money, but there is a condition. The condition is you should return money within 30 days. If you don't return, then I will persecute. I will go to court. I will file a case against you, and I will take 1 pound of flesh from any part of your body which I like. So Sherlock is very intelligent, very intelligent, and I must tell you that villains are smarter than heroes. And heroes are always troubled by villains. If you are good, then there are many people to trouble you. Good people are troubled. So Shylock is very clever and very, very cunning and very schemy. And if you read the play very carefully, you find that Shakespeare's sympathies go more with Sherlock than with Bassanio, Antonio, and other characters. Okay, let us not come to the conclusion that Shakespeare supports racism. No, a writer of his eminence, cannot support racism, but there is racism in the play. And because there is racism, you have an opportunity to talk about it. Okay, and some critics argue that it shouldn't be there. If there is no racism, the play is not interesting at all. I tell my friends, for example, Shivram Karan's novel Choma's Drum, and many critics say, this at the end of the play, this man didn't give land to Choma. I say that is the whole point. That is the whole point. The novel becomes very important for us today because that Brahmin in the play, in the novel doesn't give land to an untouchable. In case he gives land to untouchable, the problem comes to an end. The problem comes to an end. That is the strength of the novel. You cannot say, no, Shivram Karant is also Brahmin and the protagonist of the novel is also Brahmin. That's why he did not allow his character to give the land is a stupid kind of analysis. Very stupid kind of analysis. Okay. And similarly, people say, no, there is, this Ramayana, we should not accept the Ramayana because he kills Wali. There is no, how can he support that? Shambhukavada and so on. Because of these incidents, the Ramayana becomes very important. Okay. It's also the Mahabharata. We have to change our attitude and our approach and our perspective. We should know how to appreciate a work of art, a poem. And so, at the end of the play, this conversion takes place. This is the problem with Christianity. This is the problem with this religion even today. At the end of the day, yes, you should get converted. Why should one get converted? If I give you concession, if I take care of you, if I give you some money, if I give you some status, it doesn't mean that you should get converted to my religion. Okay, so you can practice your religion. I can practice my religion. Why should one be forced to get converted? So here at the end of the play, Portia makes this judgment. Yes, you Jews should convert it to Christianity. This is one of the important issues that we should discuss, and we should thank Shakespeare for bringing in this very vital, important issue for discussion in the play. So the Merchant of Venice is comedy or tragic comedy. It's very important play. The play can be read from several perspectives, including
Sir, your speaker is muted. Sir,
Mm.
sir, your speaker is muted. Please
When,
remove.
right now or
Just
One
A
second
right
few
now,
back,
sir.
sir.
seconds, sir.
Right now, sir. Just
Two
10
seconds
seconds
back.
back, sir.
thank God, thank God. So I was saying that the Merchant of Venice is an important play by Shakespeare. It's a very significant play by Shakespeare, and one can read and enjoy. It entertains you, it moves you, it takes you to a higher level of understanding, and it gives you aesthetic pleasure, and it also gives you an opportunity to engage very seriously with the text. You can agree with Sherlock, with Portia, or you can disagree with Portia. You can sympathize with Sherlock. Yeah. So this, in this respect, this is an important play, and this play can be profitably read from several perspectives, like racism, and this play can also be read from the perspective of homophobia. I don't have time to discuss this today. Having said this, I must once again thank Dr. S.B. Biradar. I heard him for the first time today. And he has been one of my very important friends. We have known to each other for a long, long time, more than 25 years. And we have seen each other growing and all that. And thank you, Dr. Biradar, for accepting our invitation and participating in the lecture series and sharing your valuable experiences with us. Thank you so much. Over to Rohit Joshi.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for your valuable views. The forum is now open for discussion. So, any of you have views to share or questions to raise, please unmute yourself and ask the questions.
Rohit, I have
Yes,
one.
sir.
Clarification in the present context, contextualizing the play.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Contextualizing the play. Uh, yes. Uh, Dr. Brothers, sir, can answer. Even Professor Donu, sir, can also throw some light upon it. See, as it is mentioned, there is disliking towards the Christianity in at some stage of the play. Now, how do you contextualize this after the 200 years of ruling of the British in the colonized Indian continent? One thing. And after the two world wars, keeping the present war between Rus and Ukraine, looking at all these developments after the post-colonial in the post-colonial scenario, how do you contextualize this disliking or hating the Christianity or one religion of the colonized with respect to the play? Hope I am sensible enough to ask the question.
Biradar, sir, over to you.
What is your first part of question? You said 200 years. What is it?
Sir, I am just making it more clear. See, after the 200, more than 200 years of geographical colonization and keeping the two World War post
Mhm.
scenario
Oh,
in the
ah,
whole globe, and also
mm,
the recent development between Rus and Ukraine, looking at
mhm,
all these development in the post-modern condition, how do
mm,
you contextualize the disliking or hatred towards the Christianity or any other colonized religion? How do you
mhm.
contextualize the part of the play in the present context?
Okay. See, thank you for the question. See, when we talk of this play in the context of present scenario, changing notions towards racial hatred and religious discrimination is quite a common part of it. And during my deliberation, I said that Shakespeare is trying to expose hypocrisies of Christian also. Even Donru sir rightly said that the Portia Portia has to be seen, though he liked Portia, uh, she has to be, doubted or surprised in her behavior in showing mercy on Shakespeare. Well, in this context, whether post Civil War or Ukraine-Russian wars, this is a human tendency we notice. That is what that is what revisiting of the plays is very necessary. As Dr. Donald sir has rightly said, we love Shakespeare. We reread Shakespeare. We never think that this play is outdated. As your questions rightly posed, in this context also this play has to be read. And as far as the Christian hatred, conversion in northeast part of India, and all these things, the question of identity remains. And donors are rightly said that if I make some favor, it doesn't mean that you convert in my religion or somebody else's religion. This is in a way throwing light upon the entire racial scenario. Of course, hypocrisies are in every community. We notice hypocrisies, and this is very much exposed in the play. And in this context, the post-colonial 200 years of colonialization in India or any African countries. This is quite common noticed. In Caliban's speech, we come to know that this is where these issues of asserting identity and the statements like "black is beautiful" is coming up, asserting one's identity is coming up. So in such context, it is more of a polemics than problematics. Okay, and this debate remains forever. I think the doubts on Christianity, the doubts on their converting into Christianity. This is of course there, and that media and the wide exposure of communication realizes all these things. The recently I came across one clipping where all black and red ants were put in one bottle, and you lock it, and there may be 100, 200, 100 blacks and 100 red ants in the bottle, and it is locked, and they were living quietly. So if you shake it, and open it, black ant attacks red ants, and red ants attacks started attacking black ants. So here, somewhere at the point of time, we come to know that the entire crux lies in the shaking of that bottle. So similarly, we have to address all these issues sensibly and revisit Shakespeare and take lot many things from Shakespeare by thinking of social harmony and equality and overcoming discriminations, etc. I think I gave a partial approach to what you have asked, and let's listen to Dr. Donal sir what he says. Sir, over to Donal sir.
Donu sir? I think we got disconnected from him. So till then, are there
And
any
what,
other questions?
Bedikai sir, how
Sir,
do you respond to my approach?
sir, you answered my question, sir. How the need of revisiting Shakespeare in theater or his plays, and how to
Yeah,
contextualize the content
yeah,
of the play.
yeah,
You
yeah.
answered my question, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay, okay, okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Rohit sir? Any other questions from the participants?
Uh, uh, any other question, please? Ganapati sir, you are not audible. Ganapati sir, you are not audible. Uh, no. You are not audible, sir. Could you please type the question? I'll read it for him.
I think sir will rejoin. Till then, you can take next question, Rohit.
Yes. Any other question? I guess Ganpati sir is trying to speak something, but we are unable to connect to him.
Ganpati sir, can you type the question in the chat box if possible?
I think we are unable to connect to him, sir. Prakash sir, shall we move to the last session of this last part of this session?
Yes, of course. If there is no question, we shall go ahead.
Uh, uh, I thank Dr. S.B. Biradar sir for patiently answering all our queries and shedding light on the important aspects of the Merchant of Venice play. And at the same time, I thank Professor Basavaraj P. Donur, the guiding light of Dharwad Cafe.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Just a minute. There was some problem with mobile. Okay.
But there is an
So
echo
I have
coming
logged
from
in.
your side. We can hear you, but there is
Yeah,
an
yeah,
echo
yeah, yeah,
coming from your
yeah.
side.
Yeah, now?
Yes,
Is it okay?
now it's absolutely right.
Yeah. So thank you, Rohit. It was a very nice presentation. And when I have seen the title of the talk, okay, behavior from intergroup affect stereotypes in Shakespeare's, okay, The Merchant of Venice. So we in the management we teach group dynamics, organizational behavior. Okay, so what I think today, so management literature, okay, can work as an interdisciplinary subjects. Okay, many of the plays will become a very good material because they represent the society, they represent the human behavior. Okay, in management, what we talk about the people's behavior. Okay, management is nothing but managing people, right? So both Beredar sir and Donor sir was talking about okay different characters, how they were behaving, because the writer has to reflect what is in the society, right? So that he want to communicate to the audience. So the psychologist, sociologist, management thinkers, and as well as writers, okay, can work jointly to explore new areas of okay behavioral aspects and how social and managerial problems can be solved. Okay, so my view was more of the views rather than my question. Okay, so that's all.
Thank you, Ganapati sir. I request Biradar sir, if
Yeah,
would you
yeah,
like to
yeah,
respond
yeah.
to what Ganapati
Yeah,
sir?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Ganapati sir is very appropriate in his observations. It is much of interdisciplinary approach. When I tried to frame this title, I felt that the behavior of intergroup affect. These two groups. In the beginning of my presentation, I clearly spelled out that how these intergroups, one Jews group and a Christian group, how they affect each other. And in fact, these stereotypes produced out of this kind of intergroup conflicts That Ganapati sir rightly said that this has been studied in management discourses also. One thing is quite clear in the play that it is human management. In fact, sir, Ganapati sir, the entire play talks about human management. And the
Exactly, sir.
Bedikaiser question is also in a way supplementary. How do you contextualize this play in the present scenario? And this is
Exactly.
human management. And in 2016, this play, when it was staged in US, the Jews themselves started requesting not to showcase this play. It means that they even the Jews have changed over the years. We do not see Shakespeare. I mean, sorry, Shylock nowadays. However, one or two stray examples may be there. Jews trying to hide Shylock because they wanted to prove that Jews are also good. We have one beautiful instance. How these Parsis came to India. Similar situations can be seen with Jews also, sir. And you are very apt in your observations. And interdisciplinary studies can be taken up, as you said. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your views. Over to
Thank you so
Rohit, sir.
much, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ganapati sir. Thank you, Biradar sir. I thanks our guest for our speaker for today's session, Dr. S. B. Biradar, for his such a wonderful talk. And at the same time, I thank Professor Basavaraj P. Donur, the President Dharwad Katte and Registrar Central University of Karnataka, for his constant guidance and support. And I thank all the members of Dharwad Katte as well as the participants because of whom this program could be such a great success. And I also declare that we'll meet next Saturday with equally interesting talk at the same time, 6 p.m. Till then, Namaste, Sat Sri Akal, Shabba Khair, Merry Christmas, and good night. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, brother, sir.